Yes, sir.
Man, for the viewers who may not know who you are, you know what I'm saying? Let them know what your name is and let them know where you from.
What's good? What's good, people? This is Tracey Lee, straight out of Philly, man, and just here to chop it up and talk about some things and run through the whole gambit. But thank you for having me. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's definitely an honor, King. Man, my first question is or my next question is, when did you actually get exposed to hip hop? Was it something you seen on TV? Was it something you heard first, or was it already out in the community at that time?
Oh no, it was definitely Rapper's Delight, man. For people that grew up in my era, for most of us, especially outside of New York City, I think the first song, rap song that we heard was Rapper's Delight on the radio. It was a new phenomenon. It was like, what is this? People, you know, putting words together in a rhythmic fashion. And I was 9 years old at the time, and so we immediately gravitated towards uh, that music, and it represented a culture, the beginning of a culture that we never knew that we was a part of, that we were naturally gravitated towards and a part of. So Rapid Delight was it for me, man, and it just kind of springboarded from there. Man, with all the greats that followed, at least from a music aspect, but the entire culture was just something to behold, if you will, from the graffiti to the way people dress, to the slang, to the vernacular, to the to the dance, all of that, man. It was just like, this is who we found our tribe. You know what I'm saying? And so it just kind of went from there.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Now my next question is, when did you begin to participate?
Oh, I would say almost immediately, because I started to mimic what they did, you know what I'm saying, before I
Mm.
started writing myself. And I think I wrote my first rhyme when I was about 11 or 12. So it was about 2 years afterwards. And that really stemmed from, me listening to The Message and Melly
Mhm.
Mel, you know what I mean? Like, he, kind of took, what people were doing and really added that substance. It was more than just the hip, the hop, the hibbit. It was more than throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. He started giving us the narration of what the hood was about, what the streets was about. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. You know what I'm saying? It's like a jungle sometimes. Like, that's where you actually looked outside and you saw what was going on, and it was a direct reflection of what Mel was talking about. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I started to kind of write, and I didn't come into my own just yet, but at least I started to put pen to pad, and even if it sounded like somebody that I truly admired at the time, it was that those humble beginnings where we started to get it together before we started to turn into what we would become. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Shout out to Melly Mel for sure, a pioneer, a legend, living legend.
Absolutely.
Okay, now my next question is this: by you coming out of Philly, what was the hip hop scene like at that time? Was it almost identical to New York, or did y'all have your own thing going? Because a lot of people look at Philly like East Coast New York is all the same, but it's a totally, different wave, you know?
Nah, it was definitely different. It was, it was the same, but it was different. We all recognize Philly being the hub. I mean, New York being the hub, but Philly has something to say too. And to be specific, we were back then more known for our DJs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
they knew where to come if you wanted to see a dope DJ, and really, that's truly what the essence of hip hop is about. You know what I'm saying? Like, it
Mhm.
started with the DJ. It didn't start with the MC. And then the MC was like the complimentary piece. You know what I mean? To the DJ. The DJ was the forefront. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. You know what I'm saying? And that was like, you know, some of the first. They talking about Cool Herc, DJ Cool Herc. You know what I'm saying? These were the people that DJ Hollywood. These were the people that were in the forefront. It wasn't the MCs. You know what I mean? And so, when it came down to, like, you know like certain types of scratches and getting in and out of certain records and things like that, that's where Philly kind of made their name. Not to say that we didn't have LMCs back then, but I think Jazzy Jeff, there's another cat by the name of Cash Money, but I think on a national scale, I think Jeff put Philly on the map when he actually went to New York and totally destroyed it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think from that point, people started to recognize from a nat, especially in New York, but from a national scale, what Philly had, with regards to the DJs. And then of course, after that, it became definitely a space for MCs when you start talking about Black Thought and Beans. I mean, even before that with Will Smith and Steady B and all of that, but Black Thought and Beans and Cassidy and Gilly the Kid, and just a whole plethora of MCs, and Meek, of course, now, and all that kind of stuff. We started to you know make our way and put our footprint with regards to MCs, but back then it definitely we were known for the DJs.
Oh yeah, most definitely, definitely respected for sure. Um, Now when you got signed, what was that process like? Did you have to like migrate to New York, or was you able to get signed from where you was at?
I got signed through connections that I had at Howard University, who happened to be from New York. Like, I went to school with Puff. I went to school with, Derek D. Dot Angeletti, who produced the Benjamins, who produced, Hypnotized, who produced my record, The Theme is Party Time. Mark Pitts is the cat that I, signed to by Storm Universal at the time, but he still currently runs by Storm. As a matter of fact, he's the president of RCA to this day. But he also went to Howard as well. So the community where I met these people that happened to be from New York was really at Howard. But, because the labels and everything were in New York, I went to New York to, once I signed my deal, I actually inked my deal while I was still in DC, but then had to move to New York in order to begin the process of recording and all this other stuff. And essentially that's where the industry was. But I really owe it to Howard University, because that was where everything got started, and that's where all the players met initially. You know what I'm saying?
Wow, man, that's amazing. That just lets you know what type of creative minds and people that come up out of Howard. Like you named some heavyweights, man, for
I mean,
sure.
and it's even more than that. It's like, Mark
Right,
is with the Howard, Anthony Anderson went to Howard, Taraji P. Henson went to Howard. I mean, you can go back to Debbie Allen, Felicia Ayers Rashad, you know what I'm saying? They all went to Howard, Felicia Allen Rashad and Donnie Hathaway. And, like, it's just a rich history, that Howard University brings. So, yeah,
right. Big shout out to Howard, the HBCUs.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Now, can you talk about your first album? What was that process like? The Many
Mm.
Faces album.
It was really, it was the debut, and it really, it expressed, the years that I've been, I wrote that album, um, kind of like expecting, this the material that I put on that album was really, most of it was written a couple of years before the album dropped, because it was a part of the demo. But little did I know that what I was writing a few years prior to me getting signed would actually be the material that people would be introduced to. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why it happened like that is because the theme, was one of the later records that I did, took off so fast that the label, wanted to put something out to kind of take advantage of the hype, or people, being, because it was such a hot record, is like you want to capitalize, which I think was not a good move. But they were trying to get some sales based off of the energy that the theme had brought. So we had to bring some of those records that I had written, as a part of the demo, and it worked though. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, little did I know that these records would be a part of the first project, and so the process, was a little different. Like we kind of had to catch up to what the theme was doing. Now, the sacrifice was that people still didn't know who Tracey Lee was. They knew what the record was. You know what I'm saying? When you hear his Party Time, you know what that is. But a lot of people still were not familiar with, or did not get properly introduced to who Trey Lee is. And so, it's kind of like the gift and the curse. Like I'm still grateful for what the theme did. I'm still grateful for, the doors that were allowed to open, or that the theme kind of bust open that allowed me to come through and take advantage of. Even to this day, still getting calls for shows based off of that song. But, it did not give a bunch of people, the opportunity to understand who Trey Lee is. So you never really got a chance to take a dive into Many Faces, which is, the thing may be the surface record, but those other records give you a deeper dive into, Trey Lee, the MC, and the many stages, for no pun intended, or the many faces of Tracey Lee, and what from a mental perspective, how I deal with certain things given certain situations. You know what I'm saying? Not every situation is handled the same. So that's what Many Faces was all about. But again, uh, people didn't get a chance to get into it. Now I'm seeing 25 years later, almost 25 years later, it'll be the 25th anniversary next year. I probably get more respect for that album now than I did back then, because it was kind of ahead of its time. But you know, I guess timing is everything, and everything happens for a reason and when it's supposed to happen. So, but that was essentially the process, is just trying to catch up to the success of the theme and trying to put this album out in a timely fashion to take advantage of what was happening at the time. And I think we couldn't have did a better job at that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I appreciate that, King. Now,
Hmm.
now you connected with Busta on that album. What was that
Yes.
like? How did you meet Busta, and what was that studio session like, if you could recall it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was Mark Pitts, man. Mark, he connected the dots with Big, and he connected the dots with Buster. Uh, Buster was on the pseudo remix to the theme. It was called the After Party, and yeah, man, it was just simply a phone call. Uh, Let me pull a favor. Yo, boss, you want to get on this record? Yeah, 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 let's do it. You know what I'm saying? Of course, he got a bag for it. So, he wasn't going to turn, and, he wasn't going to turn down the bag at that time. You know what I'm saying? And again, him and Mark, had a good rapport. So, and I also like to think that both he and Big respected me as an MC. So it was like, yeah, let's jump on this record and let's make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So that's how that went down.
Oh yeah, big shout out to Bus, a legend for sure. He been on fire for so long,
Yeah,
man.
man. Yeah, you talking about almost 30 years, man. If not 30 years,
Yeah,
absolutely.
people don't even work a job for 30 years. That's
Exactly.
major.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of touched on it a little bit. If you can, you could talk about the track with Biggie. Keep your hands high. Now, I think I seen an interview and you said Hove was at the studio with y'all as well.
Yeah, he had a session. He was working on The Streets Is Watching, I believe. We were both we were all at D&D Studios, and he was there. Him and Big was chopping it up before I got there, and that was actually the first time I had met Jay. And so it was real brief. Yo, what's good? Da 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 da. Shook hands and all that other stuff, and then he went into a session, and me and Big proceeded to get busy at ours. And so it was it was dope, because in the midst of writing the song, we were really chopping it up, and he was giving me jewels about the business that I had never heard before at that particular time. And so, definitely a great conversation. Definitely, jewels that will last a lifetime. You know what I mean? And then after that, we proceeded to get busy, but his writing style was different. Different than what I had seen, because he wasn't writing stuff down. We would have conversations, and then he would kind of mentally dip out, and you just see him doing this. And I'm like, yo, what is he doing? And he'll come back in the conversation, then he'll dip out and just sitting in the chair though, and just start doing this because the music is playing in the background. Loud though, but it's playing. And so, we rolling up, we taking sips of the Henny, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, 8 hours later, he's like, I'm ready. I said, ready for what? He's like, I'm ready to get in a booth. I said, where's your pen and the pad? He's like, I can't write it down. It confuses me. So I never understood that until later. You know what I mean? And so what Big was doing was he was compartmentalizing everything in his head, writing it in his head, but instead of writing it on the paper and writing it in his head, he could kind of get the inflections of the way he wanted to say the rhyme, and get the get everything together and transfer it straight to the mic as opposed to putting it on paper where he still would have to kind of read it and then spit in the mic. You're kind of cutting out the middleman, which is genius, you know what I'm saying? Plus the way Big rhymes, he's very efficient with his words. So he don't have to write a lot of words, just the right words. And so those words would just stay in his head, man. And then once he caught the bounce, that was it. And so what you got was the result of that is what I like to think is a masterpiece between he and I, man, because it was a verbal joust. You know what I'm saying? Like I think a lot of people won't admit it, but I think I made him step his game up as he made me step my game up. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's what MCs do. The sword sharpens the sword. So, I just think, I'm very grateful and thankful that I had the opportunity to rhyme with the brother, rest in power, Notorious B.I.G. And, like I said, I like to think that I made him a better MC because I know he made me a better MC. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. R.I.P. to Big, man. One of the
Mm-hmm.
greatest, the
Yes.
GOAT, one of them, most definitely. But I mean, the way that you broke it down, I never really looked at it like that. He's spitting it fresh from his
Yeah.
brain to the wax. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Like, just the whole time, the process of him just memorizing it, getting the flows and the inflections and all of that without writing it down. So it comes out easier when you're transferring it to the market. And eventually I started, after I went to law school, that's what I started doing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, because I could remember more things just for me exercising my brain and studying cases and all that other stuff. It was like, oh, to write a rhyme is nothing, you know what I'm saying? So then I started to adopt that saying. That's when it really clicked. It's like this Big was talking about all them years ago, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
You know, uh, tripping. Man, that's crazy, man. Now that you said that, for the viewers who may not know, like you said, you went to law school, you actually a lawyer, but you an entertainment lawyer. Man, what motivated you to go from being a hip hop artist, or is that something that you always wanted to do? How did you make
Oh,
that transition?
no, I had no intention. Once I graduated from undergrad, man, I had no intention of going back to school. But, it was really the business, man. It was, once I got into the business, because I got into the business just wanting to be a dope MC. And so once I got in there, it was like, now I understand that this is not really about being a dope MC. It's really about the politics. It's really about the business acumen. It's really about, getting what you negotiate, you know what I mean? And then, you know, because I didn't have that type of guidance coming into the game, as I, began to learn while I was in the game, it was like, okay, I may have bumped my head a couple of times to figure this thing out, but what I also don't want to happen is that I allow, if I can, other people to make these same mistakes. So why not be that guiding light, if you will? You know what I mean? And again, this came from trials and tribulations of the game and the trial period of figuring the things out. And then me discovering, yeah, this is what I need to do, not only for myself, but for cats coming up, behind me. So that was my motivation of going to law school. You know what I mean? And that was my motivation for becoming an entertainment attorney. And that is still the motivation of me actively practicing as an entertainment attorney. But then still, creating music, you know what I'm saying, at the same time. So yeah.
Oh, okay, man. Salute to you, man. That's
Appreciate
major. And now I got a question off of that. I mean, it seems like, especially in Black America, it seems like as long as they've been able to record records, it's always been a situation where the artist is like in a situation where they're not getting what they're supposed to get. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes like they feel like almost as they got cheated versus them saying, well, no, I was supposed to get 10 cent a record and I got the money and I got.
it. Hmm.
So is it that complicated? Like what is it that always like it's 100, it seems like it's almost 100 years later and black artists are still like Meek
Yeah.
Mills came out and he like I didn't get the money I was supposed to get. Why does that keep happening and what can we do to break that cycle?
Well, two things. The easiest the thing that's more on the surface, I'll get into first. That's essentially finding competent representation that's working in your best interest. that will, you know, break it down to you in a way that you can understand as an artist of why you should or should not sign a deal. You know what I'm saying? That's the first thing. Like that's you as an artist doing your due diligence and finding that person that can properly negotiate your deal. But then the other part of it is the artist has to be willing to listen and understand that person that is working in your best interest. That when they're telling you something is good or not good, you don't override it as an artist just for the mere fact or the sheer fact of you being anxious to sign that deal. You know what I'm saying? Like there's many of us, and I was one of them where I just wanted to get on. I want to get on. Like, I want to get on. Like, this is my lifelong dream. I'm willing. You want to get on so bad that you're willing to sign anything, no matter what somebody tells you. So, again, if you're going to go out and get, proper representation, your job as an artist is to actually trust what that representation is telling you and put aside the fact that you've been waiting so long to get on. Because what is it worth you waiting so long to get on when you sign a whack deal or a monkey deal that's gonna take you even steps back, further back than where you started. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you see a lot of history repeating itself, because a lot of artists feel like, oh, this ain't gonna happen to me. This ain't gonna happen to me. Yeah, I done heard all the stories, but it ain't gonna happen. Yeah, it will happen to you. You know what I'm saying? So, but for all the artists out there that are listening to this, man, again, find competent representation. Find representation that you can trust, but understand the word trust. If you found him and you hired him because you trust them, not him, her, him or her, them. You find him or her because you trust him or her, and you hire him or her, then listen and take heed to what he or she is saying to you and advising you to do with regards to your deal, because that will save you a lot of trouble later on down the line.
Oh man, I appreciate you sharing that and breaking that down because a lot of time the artists don't really go into it. They just kind of, like you say, on the surface, be like, "Oh, they cheated me out my money," but they don't explain it to where the next generation of artists can learn from it. They rarely, rarely do that. So, like
Right.
you say, trust is definitely a major factor. Now, you got a chance to work with a lot of giants. Lyrically, physically recording. When you worked with Big, you worked with Busta. Puffy. You met Hove. But on the lawyer side, have you been able to work with any major figures in the industry?
Yeah, I've done some work with Kelly Rowland, done some work with Solange Knowles, done some work with a company that represented Kobe, the late great Kobe Bryant, um, and that this same company also, was the bridge between myself and Solange and Kelly. We work with a lot of great independent artists, Eric Roberson, Grammy nominated artists, R&B artist. I mean, that's my brother, man. We went to Howard together, man. I mean, he's an incredible, incredible singer, songwriter, composer, man. Algebra Blessed, uh, Young Guru, DJ Young Guru. A lot of people don't know that he DJs as well, but he's Jay's engineer, been his engineer for the Jay-Z, that is, for the last shit 20 some odd years. You know what I'm saying? Which is also a brother of mine that went to Howard. So yeah, there've been R.J. Payne, who is one of the illest MCs out right now. Derek D. Angeletti. So we got a couple people that we have been doing some work with from a legal perspective. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, okay, man. Salute to you, man. You making it happen. That's very inspiring, man. You getting a
Thank you,
chance
brother.
to see both sides of the game and also you sharing that information because a lot of times some of our people, like I say, when we get that information, is not always shared or accessible. So
Fact.
I salute you for that.
Fact.
Let me see, let me see. Man, what are you working on these days? Is it any more music coming for you? Are you retired? Are you working on a book, documentary, biopic? What you got coming?
Right now, man, we're pushing my wife. She just wrote a children's book called Hip Hop Don't Stop. It's for ages 4 to 10, and I think it's a groundbreaking children's book that really, kind of brings it down to their level and gives them the historical aspect of the culture. You know what I'm saying? But putting it in rhyme form, if you will, kind of like on, I guess, to give an example, kind of like a Dr. Seuss type of situation. But again, it's taking a dive and bringing the culture down to a level where it can give, the child that's 4 to 10 years old a basic understanding of the historical impact and the historical proportions of the culture itself. And I don't think that there's a children's book out there that does this. So salute to her, man. We're pushing that very, very heavy. As far as new music is concerned, I think 2022 we're gonna put something out. We're coming off the heels of Glory, which was under Grammy consideration. For its 2021 release. You can still go get that on all streaming platforms and on TraceyLeeMusic.com. That's TraceYlee music.com. And then along with Glory, the music, we have Glory the manuscript, which is essentially, a written out portion of the album, but it also has photography that gives you, the depiction of the pandemic and social injustice and everything that was going on in 2020 and 2021 and even to today. You know what I'm saying? The political landscape, because essentially that's what the album is about. But we felt like we wanted to put it in a form, not only from an audio perspective, but also from a literary perspective. So we have, again, the songs written out, as well as the photography, as well as journal entries that give you, the mind state that I was in when I wrote these records. And I think, this is something else that, we try to, the name of my company is called Left Entertainment. So we try to go left with a lot of things that we do just so that we can carve out our own space and our own lane. Because, to be quite frank, the business is saturated. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that MC. There's a lot of people there's a lot of people that rap. There's a lot of people that make music. So we want to kind of, stick out and differentiate ourselves and separate ourselves from everybody else, man. So that's why we create works like Glory the Manuscript to go along with the album.